Today, Boo, my dog, and I are here to talk to you about some definitions and conceptions of social media and informatics. Well, as you can see, Boo is bored with this, so I'll go ahead and move forward and talk about it, and she may decide to chime in at some point. In this video, I want to talk to you about 5 definitions and conceptions that we will use in this course, across the course, in our discussions and assignments and interactions and activities we do. And I want you to keep them in mind and refer back to them in every assignment you do and every posting you make to a discussion board, and bring them in whenever you can, but also extend beyond them. Go out and use some of the tools like the electronic library information, Google searches. I'm not even opposed to Wikipedia as long as you check the viability and truthfulness of what is there, because sometimes that can be a good starting point. I always want to make sure, though, the information you use and cite for assignments is quality or good information, which has a lot to do with information science and informatics. So in this video, I'm going to talk about 5 things. I'm going to talk about information science, number 1. Number 2, ontologies. Number 3, technology. Number 4, informatics. And then finally, number 5, social media. All of these things being what this course is about. So, what is information science? Information science is a academic discipline. As you know, we have a school, Library and Information Science. We also have schools out there called Schools of Library and Information Studies. We have iSchools. Then you'll hear information and other things such as computer information science, management information science, and all these denote that information science as a discipline is interdisciplinary. Okay, it involves many disciplines, including communication even. Areas also include cognitive science, management. We manage information and communication, public policy, social science, computer science, information systems. All of these have the idea of being human. Information science brings those to a human component. How are they used by humans? How are they created by humans? How are they organized by humans? How are they useful? So the overarching philosophy of information science, it looks at the issues arising at the intersections of computer science, information technology, and philosophy. Philosophy particularly as it relates to dynamics of information and the use of information. Okay, so as you can hear in information science, it has a very human component. I had a few people when they looked at registering for this course were asking things like, do I need to know math? Do I need to know programming? No. Okay, you need to know about them, and we'll talk a bit about them, but this is really about the human side of technology and how technology is useful, usable, or not useful and usable for humans. So information science, what I want you to know is that it's a interdisciplinary discipline centered on information, human use, and know a bit about some of the disciplines that affects. Clearly, many of you come out of communications, and communication sciences certainly are applicable here. The second thing I want to talk to you about is ontologies. Boo had to remind me what the second thing was. And ontologies basically come right out of information science. And ontologies, an ontology is a formal, explicit specification of a shared conceptualization. Okay, now you can say, Dr. Bonici, you're being really academic and PhD-ish, and don't talk above our heads. and I don't want to, and some of you may well get that, and that's great. But let me bring it around a little bit to something that Ms. Boo says she can understand. And it's basically an ontology is a structural framework, okay, for organizing information, okay. Blackboard could be an ontology per se. Not Blackboard as a product itself, but what happens inside of Blackboard. How many times do you get into a course and say, I can't find what I'm looking for? And nobody has really come up with a really good, that I know of, way to organize the information within Blackboard, because you know what, everybody kind of uses it differently. So therein lies the human side, is how do we make this useful for humans across the board, or for humans in a particular discipline. So for instance, do computer science students look at how information is in Blackboard differently than communication students might think about the best way information is grouped, categorized, and displayed in Blackboard? Do business majors look at it differently? So as you can see, the ontology, again, it is, we make it explicit. We say, here's how it's organized, because we as a group have decided this is the best way it is. So I've gone a little bit different way of organizing this course. It's kind of a combination of pre-thought through, but also at the same time a little off the cuff, because you all come from a variety of backgrounds, and I'm just kind of trying to see what works best. Therefore, I'm starting with these videos because I think they kind of centralize it. But as we work along, I'll get some feedback from you on what works, so we can create kind of an ontology for this course, okay? So a structural framework for organization is what an ontology is. Okay, where are ontologies used? Because, you know, everybody's going to ask, well, how can I use this? You know, what does this mean for getting a job? How will I use this when I get a job? Well, it's used in things like artificial intelligence. It's used in the semantic web. What is the semantic web? Well, the semantic web basically is the whole idea of tagging and social tagging. How many of you have gotten into Facebook and actually tagged? You know, you might tag a photo or tag a posting you put on Facebook because you want people to see it. And it's kind of weird because all of a sudden you'll get this notice, hey, so-and-so just tagged me in a photo, or it says, you know, so-and-so with me. And I'm like, well, I wasn't there with them. I didn't go to, you know, the Tampa Zoo. But the whole idea there is I was tagged because that person wants me to see it. So it makes a connection for me with the information. I know to go to look at it because the person who posted it figured I'd have some interest in it. But the outward view looks like I was there with the person, which, as we know, can be kind of bad, because if my employer, I'm working somewhere and I'm supposed to be at work and I happen to be home sick that day, and ironically my friend went to the Tampa Zoo the day I was sick and then posted and said it looks like I was there with them, and my employer goes, really? You know, you were off sick, but you were at the Tampa Zoo. Makes for all kinds of confusion. So we can see where ontologies with the semantic web and tagging can be problematic. Okay, so it's a great idea. Tagging can bring information more visible to an individual, but at the same time, the system and the language they use, such as with so-and-so at so-and-so, can convey misinformation. So I want you to think about that. Semantic web is actual social construction of information. Okay, so we have the web or social media, and the ability to have users tag information to provide more meaning. It can be used in areas of systems engineering, how systems are built for particular situations. Bioinformatics, how bioinformaticists and medical personnel look at information from CAT scans and other blood work data, and how they label that and connect it for diagnosis through the Centers of Disease Control. It's also used in library science for how we organize information in what we call the OPAC, or the Online Access Catalog. When you go to the library's website and you put in search terms into the search box at the library website to find resources, and how are those organized. It's funny, I have a background in library science, and one of my biggest complaints is information isn't always really findable in that site, because information scientists use their language to organize a website, like databases. Well, what do databases mean to a user who isn't educated in that area, or maybe didn't receive orientation or training on how to use the library's website? And it's also used in information architecture, and information architecture is an area that is what we call the back end of web pages, okay, or the HTML development of web pages, and how those web pages are structured. So from the front end, we look at a web page and see these labels, like at the top, for home, students, faculty, more information, as if, it's more on top of what you already have, and how that's all organized, okay? And an information architect takes that from the back end and tries to make it make sense and more usable through ontologies, or again, the shared conceptualization or understanding for a particular community. In the case I'm giving there for students, faculty, what other, it's for university key players, and key players in the university are staff, faculty, students, okay, and any other support staff. So it's used in a lot of areas, and the whole idea here is each of you are coming from different majors, and not only different academic majors, but even within those majors, you might have particular unique interests or ideas of the kind of work you want to do. So the whole idea of this class, and the idea of ontologies within the idea of communication and information, is doing all your assignments and the information you look at and the studying you're doing for this course in the context of your particular major and your particular career interests. Okay, so in other words, you have an opportunity in this course to frame the work you do specific to your interests. Okay, so as you can imagine, in the introduction, I'm going to want assignment, which I'll talk about in the next video. I'm going to want you to talk a little bit about your background and your interests and your career goals, so I understand that. And then you can talk about the ontologies and be identifying and creating the components of the ontologies for that particular area. Boo, what was the third thing? Oh, yeah. The third thing was technology. Okay, you've heard me talking a lot about technology. And that's the big difference where library science and information science kind of split. And I don't want to say they split so much as they became totally different. They kind of branched. Think of it like a tree, and you trim the tree and then another branch comes out. And so information science branched out. Now, and interestingly enough, library science is the concern with information within the context of a library. And that library can be physical that you go to, or virtual, as I've talked about, the online website. Information science kind of backed to that scope up and became broader, and was the whole concept of information in its broadest sense. Okay, so not just library, but information within any human context, to be that just general searching the web, be that within a particular business or organization, be that within the academic environment, even hobbies, like genealogy and how people find information about their family backgrounds. It could be other hobbies such as, construction, or boat building, or putting together model airplanes. bicycling. So it's information in everyday user context. Okay, and an everyday user finds themselves in different situations daily. Sometimes my daily information is about research, and then it could be about teaching. Then it could be about making stained glass. Then it could be about riding my bicycle or going running. And what are the different apps I might use in each of those? I might use an app for designing with colors in my glass work, or it might be an app on how I want to measure the distance I ran or the calories I burn. And there's a bunch of different apps out there for that, and which one works best for me as an individual person might be different than what it is for my club that I'm involved in, where other people have input. And each of those are different ontologies. But technology, for information science purposes, looks at things like human-computer interaction. Think back to my research and how users can or cannot access information through technology because of the interaction or mediation of the computing in that. For instance, if I've had a stroke and the right side of my body now is not physically capable of doing things, how do I manipulate a mouse or a touchpad? I'm going to have to rethink that if I still want to use the computer. So human-computer interaction. Again, the semantic web that I talked about, tagging. What are the different kinds of tagging? Like when I save these videos, one of the tagging it wants to use are these colors. Well, am I going to assign meaning to a particular color? Or am I going to create a whole new tag? And that all is in the context of this course and how we think about information as it's organized in this course. So semantic web. Design, again, the usability of a website. The person who develops a website understands and knows in their own mind how they constructed and built that, but does a user understand that? Think about it, like when you go into a building, are you on the first floor or are you on the mezzanine? And is the mezzanine really, the first floor is the mezzanine, the second floor? And if you have a mezzanine, then do you have a second floor because the mezzanine isn't used by everything, or is it really the second floor become the third floor? So you can kind of see, sometimes when you get in an elevator now, the mezzanine messes up depending on how we think about the entrance to a building and the floors. Or sometimes you'll see concierge and then first floor, second floor. Well, is the concierge really the ground level floor? And is the first floor really a floor above, which for some of us, that's the second floor. So you can see how confusing that can be when we talk about design and whether that design is of a physical building that we're trying to navigate or a website that we're trying to move around and navigate and find information. But the whole idea here is technology and its use in the broadest sense. Okay, it is not domain specific like libraries. It's not domain specific like medical informatics that only deals with medical information. And typically medical informatics deals with medicine from the professional or practitioner side, not the common person searching for medical information from a recent diagnosis. So medical informatics involves formal systems of medicine like PubMed, or perhaps systems that doctors use from the Centers of Disease Control. So it's specific to that. So we're talking broadest sense. It can include those things, but it also can include person's personal information. So technology in its broadest sense, not only just for finding information, but for how we communicate. As we know, social media is something that we push out information, like Twitter will push out information, post something, or retweet something. You don't typically see it as a conversation back and forth between people, although there are some underlying contexts where tags or hashtags are used to denote perhaps a little more information within a public tweet for a particular person that are the followers of the tweeter. So it does involve communication. Blogs tend to be one way. They don't look for interaction back and forth. You're pushing out that information, but yet you look at, say, online news media like newspapers, where you have that whole idea kind of a traditional news story, but now we can make links to other things related to the news story, and even at the bottom of the news story, now we have a place where the public readers can provide maybe more information or commentary on that we can't do in the print version of that. So it introduces, in the context of information science and technology that is interactive or has a social component. Okay, so we've had information science that is interdisciplinary and looks at the intersection of computer science, information technology, and philosophy. We've looked at ontologies, where it's the explicit shared concept of organizing information for a particular group. And now we've looked at technology, which is the medium in everyday context for a specific group. Boo, what's the fourth? Oh yeah, informatics. Informatics is an interesting term because it's in some instances people use informatics as a synonym or just another word for information science. But really informatics is a little bit different, because information science can be not only an academic discipline of the study of information, it can also be a person who practices that, like a web developer could be also called an information professional, because not only do they develop the actual web page, they think about how that information is organized, okay, for the user. Or they might have a little bit of an architectural perspective on how that back end should be put together with the files and folders that inform, or files linked to, like pictures in that. But informatics is specifically an academic field, okay? It's academic. It looks at researchers who look at computing technologies and the diverse relations to human and social worlds, okay? Like, and that is, when I talk about human and social worlds, I mean science, social problems, and even issues in the arts, okay? So it's academic-based study of computing technologies for diverse relations, people, okay, and what happens. And that's why this course is called informatics, because we are studying at this point computing technology, specifically social media, which I'll define next, okay, and how people relate. So in essence, I'm wanting you in this course to think about which computing technology, meaning which social media technology, and there's a lot of them out there, is best for the context of conveying information or communicating with people, okay, or a group of people. So in this course, we're thinking about, and rather than just off the cuff doing, we might think about, well, why would we put that information out on Facebook? Or why would we instead put it on Twitter? Or why instead would we post it in a blog post? Or why might we do a combination of the two, is post it on a blog post, but then tweet our blog post out? Why? What's behind all that? Who do we want to communicate? What are we trying to get out? What is the time factor we're trying to get that out? What is the context of that information being conveyed? Okay, so why are we choosing those technology media sources to send out communication and or information to a particular audience? Okay, those are prime things we're thinking about in this course. Which leads me now to the fifth thing, which I just talked about so I don't have to ask Boo, is social media. Okay, and social media, go back to my introduction when I talked about why am I introducing myself, is the whole idea social media is just that. It's social. It's social meaning interaction among people, and people who create information when we post something via social media. We're creating it. Okay, or perhaps we're not creating it, we're sharing it, such as in a retweet. Somebody else created that information. Now we're retweeting it because we think it's important, or it's exchange of information, like we might in a hashtag for a conference be putting out that a session was canceled, or a session has been added, or people are gathering to go to dinner, or in a session we might come up with a new idea. Okay, and think, oh yeah, and push that out. So it's the exchange of information, ideas in a virtual context. Okay, so remember, it's interaction. There's three components here. It's interaction among people, okay, whether that be 2, 5, 10, 20, 100, or those popular people on Facebook who have, 1,000 friends. Okay, it's interaction among people. Okay, so more than one person, to create, share, or exchange information or ideas. Okay, that's the second component: creation, sharing, or exchanging information or ideas within a virtual community. Okay, so that might be Facebook, Twitter, any of the other social media area, even Flickr, okay, exchanging pictures, a blog, okay, with more bigger ideas, more verbosity in those exchange of ideas, or networks even, okay, networks meaning like, possibly even email. Okay, so three components: interaction among people, exchanging information ideas, or creating information ideas, or sharing information ideas in a virtual community or network. Okay, keep that in mind. Okay, so again, now in this video, we've talked about information science as an interdisciplinary area affected by a lot of disciplines, be they very scientific like computer science and engineering, all the way to a very social area like public policy and management, all the way to even a very humanities-based like the arts. We've looked at ontologies, which is the creation of a structural framework for organizing information for particular communities of people. We've looked at the various technologies, okay, and particularly as there are human-based technologies like human-computer interaction, semantic web or social tagging, web space design. Okay, so information in its a very, very broadest sense of technology. We've looked at informatics, which is an academic field, okay, and it's looking at computing technologies and how that's done for groups of people sharing information in a virtual context. And then social media itself, which is the actual interchange among the people in a community or network that's virtually based, exchanging, creating, or sharing information and ideas. So you're probably going to go back and listen to this video several times, jot down notes of those main things and what they are. I've given you the basics. I expect you to go out maybe and do a little Google search on each one of those and see what more might be explained out there about those. There's a encyclopedia you can access through the UA libraries that's called the Encyclopedia of Information Science, that you can actually do a topic search, and all of these things are going to be found in there, and you can read further on those, and I expect you to go and do that. So access the library website, find the Encyclopedia of Information Science. If you don't know how to do that, on that website there's a social media context that says Ask a Librarian, and you can actually ask them and they'll send you an email with step-by-step instructions. Okay, I could tell you how to do that, but I want you to use the tools. Okay, that is a social science tool. It's a system for exchanging ideas, okay, or finding out information through online. So the Encyclopedia of Information Science through the library's website, and looking up the term information science, ontology, technology, informatics, and social media, and get more in depth. information, okay? And you're going to use that for your first and subsequent assignments, which I'll talk about in the next video. You'll want to look at not only is the overview of the course, which I'll have next, but also in the assignments area where I talk about each of the assignments. So now we've got the foundation information that I expect you to go out and look at and spend the next couple days looking at, and then also look at the next two videos.